In today's real estate exam prep video, we're going to continue our important key real estate vocabulary word series. Today, we're going to do 170 of 300 fiduciary duties. So let's get rolling. Hey everyone, my name is Paul Vacheski and welcome to the Real Estate Classroom YouTube channel where my mission is simple, and that's to help you pass your real estate exam the first time. Hey, real quick, do me a favor. Subscribe to the channel. I would love that. Today, we're going to cover fiduciary duties. Number 170 of 300 fiduciary duties. It's an important key concept that you have to know, not only for your real estate exam, but also when you get into the real estate world, representing buyers and sellers. So what is a fiduciary duty? Fiduciary duty, you probably learned this term when you were in your principles and practices class, when you were talking about agency and agency relationship. They kind of go hand and foot. But a fiduciary duty is someone who owes a fiduciary duty to someone else. Now, the person that owes the fiduciary duty is known as the fiduciary or the agent. And they must act on behalf of or in the best interest of someone else. And that someone else is called the client or principal. Now, in the context of a real estate relationship, the licensee or agent, remember that the licensee and agent are one and the same. They owe the fiduciary duties to the client or principal. And remember, client principal mean the same thing. They're one and the same person. So let's talk about specifically what those fiduciary duties are that you have to know. Now, the first one I want to talk about is loyalty. One of the first fiduciary duty that an agent owes their client is loyalty. And this is where the agent puts the interest of the client before their own. So let me give you an example. Maybe you're working with as an agent, you're working with an investor. The investor calls you and says, hey, I found this pretty good deal on 123 Main Street. I'd like to put in an offer. So instead of writing up the offer for your client, you go ahead and contact the listing agent or the seller directly to put your own offer in because you do recognize it is a great deal. That would be a violation of the fiduciary duty of loyalty. The next one I want to talk about is obedience. This is where the agent must obey all the lawful instructions of the client as it relates to a real estate transaction. So for example, maybe there's a listing, a $500,000 listing that your client wants to put an offer in, and you sit down with that client and the client says, I want to offer $50,000. And you say $50,000 on a $500,000 listing. You have to do it. Why? Because the fiduciary duty of obedience requires that you obey all the lawful instructions, and that is a lawful instruction. Even if you know that seller, there's no hope in Hades that seller's ever going to accept that lowball offer. The next one is disclosure. Disclosure falls into two categories. The first one is the agent must disclose at the beginning of the relationship who they represent. And then number two is, as that relationship progresses, the agent must disclose to their client any information that they receive that would benefit the client's position or their negotiation position. The next one is what we call skill and care. This is where the agent must use their professional skills. Remember, once you obtain a license, you have a certain professional skill set, and you have to use that on behalf of and for the benefit of your client. The next one is confidentiality. And again, as I said previously, each state has different rules on the scope of confidentiality, how they define confidential information. So you have to know that for your licensing exam for the state side. But in general, confidentiality is a case where the agent can't disclose anything that's confidential, because typically confidential information falls into one of two categories. Either number one, it's not relevant at all to the transaction, or number two, it can harm your client's position. So give you an example. Let's say that the reason your seller is selling the property is a divorce situation. Well, if you were to disclose that, then obviously that could impact and probably would impact any offer that a potential buyer may submit. The buyer may view this as a desperate situation and throw in a lowball offer that they normally wouldn't have, because they're banking on the fact that this is a must sell type situation. Again, you can disclose confidential information if you have written consent. Now, there are times when there's certain information that an agent has about their client that would harm their client's position, but adverse material fact is one of those conditions. So let's say you're the listing agent and you know that the foundation is completely shot. The seller knows it too, but the seller does not want that information disclosed, or the seller is telling you not to disclose it. Well, that is a case where you're going to have to disclose it because it's an adverse material fact. Same way with title issues, qualifications, or the buyer's financing issues, stuff like that. Accounting, this particular fiduciary duty requires that the agent account for all funds or things of value that come into the possession of the licensee. Now, most of the time it's money in the form of cash, a check, a money order, earnest money, rents, security deposits, those type of things. So the agent is most of the time going to be required to put it into the broker's trust account. That is a form of accounting for that asset, but it doesn't have to be money. It can be, so for example, maybe a buyer wants to put a promissory note or a diamond ring as a deposit for the earnest deposit. That is legal, and it can happen. So we have to account for that diamond ring or that promissory note. So that's what I'm talking about when we're discussing accounting. Now, if you're going to continue studying for your real estate exam, check out this video right here. If you have not subscribed, please do so. Click the little circle to my left. Comments and questions down below. Would love that. See y'all in the next video.